Okay, so a couple of AMD stories have come to light recently. First of all, we now have confirmation that RDNA 4 sees a refocus from AMD. They're no longer chasing the Halo flagship products. They're going to be leaving that to NVIDIA, and they're going to be concentrating on mainstream products. And there's reasons for that, which we shall discuss. There's also now seemingly confirmation that there's an FSR 4 coming, and it is using machine learning based upscaling. And curiously, in this report from Tom's Hardware, it seems to be sort of primarily addressing the mobile market. The idea is to make handhelds that last for hours, I think. Alex, where should we start with this? Should we talk about the concept that AMD is effectively leaving the high ground to NVIDIA and what this actually means? What's your take on this?
Well, my take is that it's a bad idea and a good idea.
Right.
I'd say bad because the thing that captures people's imaginations and it gives the brand recognition of NVIDIA is actually a lot of these higher scale demos. And the fact that people say the word RTX 4090 and it conjures an image in your head of like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini of the PC space. And I think like when you say the phrase like RTX 4090, people think like it's the best of the best. And it's like unquestioned at that point.
Yeah.
And I think leaving that level of mind share off the table, in spite of the fact that it might be a small market in terms of how many people buy RTX 4090s or whatever, I think that is not good for the AMD brand image, just because it will capture less imagination and less, mind share at that point when you're not competing. It also just takes away, the fact that people just associate like high-end computing with NVIDIA at that point and not with AMD. But it's maybe good for them because they could never get up there anyway, is maybe the problem that they've kind of suffered since, for a while now with their higher end cards. And I think maybe if they did focus their energy on delivering a price performance champion in the mid-range that maybe now actually has features with RDNA 4 and above, then they could actually start winning back market share, which they've lost in that segment. Because in spite of them having things like more VRAM and arguably better rasterization performance, they're still not making headway there. And if they did concentrate instead all of their effort on that, maybe that would be a good way to bring out that. Obviously that's a market segment that they want to capture again at some point. So I'd say it's both good and bad. I do tend to say that's maybe overly more bad than it is good.
John?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like AMD has struggled in this high-end GPU market, while at the same time they've flourished in the burgeoning handheld PC market. So It just feels to me like they're just shifting to where they have established themselves as a serious player. Because realistically, I feel like I just don't think that they could catch up to NVIDIA's high-end offerings at this point. Like they're almost too far behind, and they don't necessarily have the engineering people on board and the resources to actually make that happen, because what NVIDIA is doing is fundamentally, it's an expensive, time-consuming thing to achieve. But Radeon still has a lot of value in other places, and clearly that's where they're focusing. So it makes perfect sense to me that they would do that. Although I am sad to see them drop out of that space, just because more competition is always nice at that level.
It is nice. I'm going to read out the quote, which is used to justify this decision. My number one priority right now is to build scale to get us to 40 to 50% of the market faster. Do I want to go after the 10% of the total addressable market or 80%? I'm an 80% kind of guy because I don't want AMD to be the company that only people who can afford Porsches and Ferraris can buy. We want to build gaming systems for millions of users. Yes, we will have great products, but we tried that strategy, the King of the Hill strategy. It hasn't really grown. ATI has tried this kind of King of the Hill strategy, and the market share has kind of been the market share. I want to build the best products at the right system price point. So think about price point wise, we'll have leadership. I've got a number of issues with this because the strategy has been tried.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the started with the RX 480, which became the RX 580, which became the RX 590. Now you can look at it in two ways. I think those products were the most impactful AMD GPUs in a long, long time. But GTX 1060 just dominated in terms of sales against all of those products. And it didn't really do that much for AMD. It didn't, they're talking about getting to 40 to 50% of the market faster. The strategy has been tried and it has failed. So to do it again, I'm not quite sure what the actual strategy is there, right? And Alex, going back to the Halo thing, it sounds overly simplistic. People probably won't believe it's true, but it kind of is. Mm. If you have the Halo product out there, it has such a hold over the market that people simply buy the version of the Halo product that they can afford. And that kind of marketing is solid gold, and it works. And I think you're also right in that they've had 2 generations where they actually gave it a really good go in terms of Halo products. If we think about the RX 6000 line, RDNA 2, they had a full stack there, and going up to like the 6900 XT.
Right.
Those were good products, I would say, very good products. They were comparable against Ampere when nobody thought they would be. Did it do anything for the market share? No. And you can see that just by the fact that those products were discounted quite dramatically, especially when their successors came along. And when the successors came along, the same thing happened. They didn't really change the landscape at all. So I guess AMD have got to do something, but it really does seem like reducing the scope of their operations as opposed to trying to take NVIDIA on. So the comment here is kind of like saying we're going to take NVIDIA on, but really they're not. Right. It's going to require so much from AMD to actually properly take on NVIDIA at this point. Now, if we go back to, there have been so many examples in the past where AMD has actually had price versus performance better products than NVIDIA. Classic example, GTX 960. They had the R9 280, I think, or 380. It was a better product than the 960 in every single way. It really was. It was so much better. And yet the 960 continued to sell and achieved market dominance. And the task now is even more dramatic. It's even, the mountain to climb is even higher because the products are no longer interchangeable. Right. DLSS has changed the face of the market. So yes, we'll talk about FSR4 shortly, but yes, they're way too late with a viable DLSS alternative. Way too late. If we're getting it now, that's great. How they're going to do that, to sort of regain that kind of momentum, I don't know. So I guess it's just a strategy that's adjusting to reality almost.
Right.
Why should they compete when they can actually do so much more in other markets? And John, you quite rightly pointed out the mobile market. And we'll talk about FSR4, but yes, the idea that FSR4 is primarily aimed towards getting more out of handhelds makes a lot of sense, right? Mm-hmm. Alex, FSR4, it's here or it's coming. What do you expect?
Oh, this is the weirdest announcement of a new technology that I've ever seen, where he just kind of like offhand is like, that's why I thought about FSR4. It's for batteries. It's for I told the guys to pivot, or something like that. It's like a very strange quote. It really does seem like bar talk. It's very weird. But
locker talk even.
I just imagine just sitting down talking about this at a bar. But the thing, yeah. So the discussion of maximizing battery life And it describes also like frame generation and frame interpolation. It was a little bit of a weird quote because it seems to be talking about like 2 to 3 different things the whole time. It seems like muddled on the technicals.
Yes.
And which makes me wonder if we're seeing the exact same thing here because he talks about battery life, and AMD already have AFMF2 now. And they also have FSR 3's most recent iteration, which do not use any form of machine learning to achieve frame interpolation or frame generation. And he mentions that the technology, AMD has multiple aspects of FSR that have updated kind of not in step with one another. And so FSR 3 released, and it took the spatial temporal upscaler FSR 2.21 at that time and just relabeled it to FSR 3 coupled with frame generation. So I don't know what this is exactly talking about. That's my one issue with this quote. And I also think since he talks about using machine learning and frame generation, I'm wondering if this is an NPU only technology at the moment, like the description of it.
Exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Because they're pushing NPUs in the mobile space in the very near future. And so I don't know what to make of it. Also, once again, it's just a little late to the party for me. Like, I feel like this push should have maybe happened 2 to 3 years ago at this point. But I'm very curious to see what it comes out as, because this quote, unfortunately, doesn't give me much to work on exactly what we're looking at.
Well, let's talk about the quote. On the handheld side, my number one priority is battery life. If you look at the Asus VOG Ally or Lenovo Legion Go, it's just that the battery life is not there. I need multiple hours. I need to play a Wukong for 3 hours, not 60 minutes. This is where frame generation and interpolation come in. So this is the FSR4 that we're adding. Because FSR2 and FSR3 were analytical-based generation, it was filter-based. Now, we did that because we wanted something with a very fast time to market. What I told the team was, guys, that's not where the future is going. So we completely pivoted the team about 9 to 12 months ago to go AI-based. So now we're going AI-based frame generation, frame interpolation, and the idea is increased efficiency to maximize battery life. And then we could lock the frames per second. Maybe it's 30, maybe it's 35. My number one goal right now is to maximize battery life. I think that's the biggest complaint. I read the returns too from the retailer where people want to play want to be able to play these games. So this came from Tom's Hardware, where they pointed out, well, why are they talking about handhelds and not desktop GPUs? And I think you might be quite right there, Alex, in that it's an NPU-based endeavor, which is, is on certain SoCs only. But the concept of using frame generation to get to 30 or 35 frames per second fills me with horror.
What does that feel like? Yeah, wow. Ooh.
That's going to be an experience. But it's going to be an experience that you can enjoy for hours.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping there's more to it than this. You would think surely there is a more holistic strategy to this, but it all depends really what RDNA 4 is all about, and the extent to which this technology might or might not be compatible with existing RDNA desktop GPUs. But it's strange, isn't it? I think. Quite strange. I
would have preferred a much more I think they announced FSR 3 frame generation as a very reactionary thing to NVIDIA's DLSS 3. Like, they showed it off with like a scroll like a sideways or forward scroll in Unreal Engine 5's Matrix City sample demo, and it was just like one slide on a presentation. Maybe it was 2 slides, but I would have preferred if they talked about this in a more structured way, so we'd have better expectations about what to expect. I mean, NVIDIA doesn't tend to let anyone know about anything until the very last minute or via leaks. So I don't know what they're banking on, but yeah, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we got this question from Robbie Sabo Strigas. Apologies about pronunciation, as always. Sure to have that disclaimer at the beginning of every DF Direct Weekly. Hello there, DF team! Exclamation point. AMD seemingly bowing out of the high-end GPU race actually makes them more attractive, to me at least. Nvidia charge whatever they want for their cards anyway, so what's really going to change there? I find... Fair point. I find the lower power prospects of AMD almost admirable, and it aligns with my own low power consumption ethos. If the AI-powered FSR 4 rumours turn out to be true, then I'm all in. I can't be the only one giving up on these super high prices and not chasing the quote-unquote ultimate power dragon. The thing is, AMD hasn't really been that efficient on desktop GPUs. Which is,
except for our Lord and Savior, the Radeon 7.
Definitely, that's the one.
So I don't really know what to make about that. I do think, though, that doubling down on whatever it is they're doing with handhelds is a great idea because, they've just produced some really good products there. And if they're going to double down on that, that's fantastic.
They're ahead of NVIDIA in that space for sure, obviously.
Yeah, because NVIDIA can't get an x86 core out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're still a long way off ARM for Windows actually bringing any kind of competition there.